Greetings! It is I, Tentus Naraban Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my review of anime series, and then I let you know how you can use them in your Big Eyes Small Mouth games, your BESM games. I basically review an anime series, go over some information about it, and then talk to you about how you can adapt it into your role-playing games. And of course, as I've always said, you can adapt these for other role-playing game systems. But let's start with today. I've got two from this current season of anime, and then I do have one suggestion from you and another one back from 2014, going back in the past. Let's talk about the two from this season. We have, of course, Twin Angel Break and Uchouten Kazoku Season 2. Twin Angel Break. So there are multiple Twin Angel series, but each one focuses on basically a set of girls, of friends, who eventually find that they have the power to become twin angels. In the original series, it's twin angels that they become Angels Red and Angels Blue. The two of them use this power to protect the people and to protect these amulets from this dark organization called Black Trader and its various minions attempting to steal them. Over the course of the series, of course, they meet another character, White Angel, and continue to fight the good fight. There is a current season, Twin Angel Break, which we have new characters, new angels, that are basically forming the power of Twin Angel to fight against other various dark organizations and forces that are at work in this new series that you can check out now. Of course, the genres are a magical girl. It is very much so got that magical girl feel that they transform, battle creatures, sort of story of the week a lot very often. It does have a very magic-based feel, that there seems to be some more magic powers raiding around it, just more than the magical girls that exist. The amulets of themselves seem to have some magical abilities. It's also action. They get into some good, interesting fight scenes with these things, beat up the bad guys, so to say, and try to save the day. I rate this one a 3. As magical girl genres go, it's not bad. It doesn't hit you too much with cutesy. It does have a very interesting feel to it, much different than some of the other series we could talk about that currently go on. But overall, I do recommend that you would check it out. It's an interesting one. It can be... It's an interesting one that is going on now. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 350 points. You're going to choose, in amongst all your players, the main pair of twin angels. This isn't to say that other players can't participate in this, because as we've seen in the original series, there was White Angel. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your main twin angel pair, and then you're going to have a series of other angel girls, basically being supplements to the team. You'll have, of course, the core and the extras, and they'll form a team together. They'll basically all work together as one cohesive unit in the end. Even though there is the true twin angels, which might have the extra special abilities designated to them that's required to basically fight against these dark organizations, things like Black Trader and saving the amulets, or some other kind of organization threat that you feel like would be appropriate to the characters you're building. Again, it depends on how many players you have, how well you're going to balance this out. Effectively, White Angel was more kind of an in-training character, so maybe you'll have more of those that they're not pushovers. They've got good power, just like the normal ones. It's just that they're not in a position to take over anything on their own yet. Up to you how you want to balance out that part of the storyline. But overall, you're going to be balancing out the characters' normal lives, and their lives is basically superheroines, those magical girls fighting against whatever dark organization, Black Trade or otherwise, that you design. Alright, let's move on and talk about Uchouten Kazoku, or Eclectic Family. This focuses on modern-day Kyoto. And here in modern-day Kyoto, we are focusing on Tanuki, Tengu, and those aligned with the supernatural powers. Effectively, we do focus on a particular family of Tanuki who are trying to get along. They're trying to get through their daily lives. All of them seem to have very dark problems to them. We focus on the one son who has, of course, allies with many of the Tengu, has a human friend who knows supernatural powers, goes through a lot of misadventures along the way. And we also focus on the fact that the Tanuki are trying to hide in amongst humanity while worrying about, if they're a Tanuki in their normal form, that they might get eaten and thrown in a hot pot. But they all have the Tanuki have shape-changing powers which they can use to change to look like humans, or inanimate objects if they really want to, while the Tengu have their own unique special powers. So it has this very interesting traditional Japanese supernatural feel to it, while having a very interesting family feel to it too. So I would call this one in a way a drama. That has some very dark feelings to it. The father basically got eaten. The other sons are in bad shape. The entire family is just not in great condition overall, and a lot of bad things have happened to him over the ages that make this very dramatic feel. But it offsets this, but it is also a comedy. Not a drama comedy, because they never mix these two feelings together directly. They have comedic elements that break out this tension because the characters are so unique and eclectic. They're tanuki. They're very tricksters. They like to shape change. They do a lot of interesting things when they associate with said shape changing. So it adds an interesting level on that end that's very entertaining. And also, of course, it's a fantasy. We have tanuki. We have tengu. We have humans that have learned supernatural powers from them, that they have abilities because of that. So we have this very big fantasy element in a modern-day Kyoto setting. Now, I also rate this one a 3. I like it for a little good of that comedy element. The drama can get too much for me at times, but I usually can get through it all right. And the interesting storylines of breaking onto some of this traditional Japanese idealisms of tanuki and tengu and reflecting them in this way is very interesting to me. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 300 points. And guess what? Your group of characters are going to be tanuki, tengu, or just people that have supernatural abilities, and you're going to be trying to get along in modern-day Kyoto. As simple as that. Each of you might have your own complexities and your own families that are reflecting the kind of family situations that are in the original anime, but the choice of you how much you want to integrate that in is entirely up to the players. As for the GM side, you're going to have an eclectic world where these players, these creatures, beings of supernatural abilities are trying to get along in a modern world that isn't really built for them. And there are threats to them that they have to hide from that might go on. As a tanuki, maybe you have to worry about being thrown in a hot pot at some point in time. Things like that that make it very interesting dynamic because most of them will not be human, or have taken a step away from their humanity in a way if they were just people with gaining supernatural abilities that make it feel like they aren't connected to the society that they have to sort of integrate within just to a degree. Dealing with their families, other supernatural beings, other beings that are completely different than their own, or even human threats, are where some of the interesting things and dynamics of your players' choices are going to come into play, and the direction that the entire series, the entire adventures you're going to run, will take. Alright, let's move on to one from previous seasons, going back in time, Ange. Now, Ange is set in a world where this interesting source of energy called mana is discovered, which allows humanity to move beyond its barbaric ways, remove wars, poverty, hunger, things like that, where humanity has evolved to a new level. This mana is basically be able to manipulate by anyone that is born, with some exceptions. Normals are born. These children, or these people that are born without it, are actually then shunned and hated and seen as these aberrations where they're taken away. We focus on the first princess of this country, who for a long time thought she could manipulate mana. But it was a trick by her mother. She herself was a normal. And publicly discovering this, the people that once loved her turned against her on a dime. And she is forced into this situation where she is effectively abused and sent to this military base where Norma are trained to fight against these creatures threatening this world. Dragons, where they fight in this paramail, this kind of mecha armor, where only Norma can use it for some reason. And they then have to battle against these things and try to protect it, dying battling protect it. So many of their lives are lost. And she is thrown into this situation. Now, of course, it's a drama to a good degree. There's a lot of death, depressing things, the fact that she's got this horrible fall from grace, and kind of just the bad things that happen because of the society and the way that they look upon her with this sudden change in the look. It's, of course, a mecha. They've got the paramail, this, like, mecha armor which they get into, which, gives them abilities of mecha. It's also a sci-fi. It's set in this strange future where there's this energy that almost seems like magic, but it isn't. It's basically a technology-driven thing. Everything is this technology-driven thing, even though it almost seems supernatural in a way. It's all sci-fi. Now rate this one a 4. When I watched the first episode, I almost took a step away from this. The horrible things that happened to our poor princess there in that first episode almost drove me away. But the story of her and overcoming a lot of these things actually is really good. There's this darkness that kind of follows her, that she almost falls into a lot of times, but manages to overcome. She understands towards the end why the people hate her. Because she was like that herself very often. She learns to regret the way that she treated these people that she becomes one with. So it's sort of like this interesting storyline that makes it better than the bad things that happen in it. Some very bad things are implied to be happening in this series very early on. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 400 points. You're going to make your characters a group of Norma, meaning they're all girls. It's one of those weird things about it that all the girls seem to be Norma. And they're all going to be masters of Paramount, battling against the dragons. Of course, this means there is the threat of death to your characters here. You cannot deny it. You should be careful with it because the death is used sparingly. It isn't one of those types of series where everybody dies. It's where some folks die. So be careful with it. Use it wisely. But regardless, they're going to fight against the dragons. And that's sort of where you're going to start out with. Now, if they begin to learn the secrets of the world they're in and begin to develop their own opinions, siding with whatever group they want to, finding their independence, finding a way out of the situation they're in, and the abusive situation they're in, where the society basically sees them as pawns to kill these things threatening them, the fact is they have to discover what direction they actually want to take with this, with the information that you will eventually provide them about the world they're in. Whether they will continue the fight, turn against the humanity that's abused them, or something in between is going to be entirely up to your characters. And they're going to lead the other Paramount users in that direction. Alright, let's talk about a suggestion you had. Soultaker. Now, Soultaker, we focus on Kyosuke, who at the beginning of the series is killed by his mother. There you go, that's a great way to start it off. But he finds that he doesn't die, that he comes back to life, and he gains this ability to transform into this monster, the Soultaker. So he learns that he has this twin sister, who he then begins to seek out because it's connected intrinsically to whatever's going on with him and this transformation into a monster. Along the way, he is harassed by horrible monsters from this hospital, which is run by his father, and he's also rivaled by this president of a corporation who seeks out his sister too. He also assembles a number of allies which help him battle along the way in the quest to find his sister. This is actually the series that Nurse Witch Kamugi-chan, which I've mentioned one version of it, span off from. Yes, a parody comedy spun off from this one here. Which we should talk about the genres of it, because it's nowhere near what the spin-off is. It's a horror. They're monsters. They do very monstery things. It has a very good horror element to it. It's action. He gets into fights with the monsters, while the mutants from the hospital battles against them, all in order to continue his quest line as they try to basically stop him. It's also very supernatural. Their abilities to change into these creatures almost seem supernatural, some power-based, so it has a very supernatural feel. You can see how these genres are nowhere near anything that a Nurse Witch Kamugi-chan anime has, including the one I talked about and the original ones. But still, I rate this one a 4. It's a very interesting series. It's got a great feel to it, and the characters are very interesting. And I like the fact that we have a version of Kamugi-chan in here that is so different than... I can't say so different, but intrinsically is in a series that is different than what she ends up in on her own. She spins off into a parody. Very interesting the fact that, so different here. Now, if you're using this as a BESM game, I'd recommend 450 points. You're going to make your characters a group of mutants. They're going to be journeying in order to find some form of character, whether it's a relative of one of your characters or something else. They will all have a connection to this character they are trying to journey to. Again, it could be like the twin sister that Kyosuke has. It could be something else entirely. Regardless, the hospital is going to oppose them, and they're going to fight against the mutants from that. They might have rivals in the form of this corporation or some other group that you want to invent yourself that you feel is appropriate to be rivals / enemies to the characters that they're building. And along the way, they will deepen their bonds with each other while learning their own abilities as these creatures they can transform into, battling against other creatures, and dealing with the fact that they are, in a way, a monster. That they are maybe becoming more of the monster that they are. An interesting thought pattern there. That the more they transform, the more they use their monster's abilities, the more they become that and less human they are. That's one of those things about a series where you have transforming into a monster you always want to consider using. It is a cliche, but it's a great cliche, and it always adds to some of the very great storytelling. And if you mix it in with everything else, it's less noticeable. So, that's it for today. I introduced you to 4 more anime series. I gave you a little review on them and told you some suggestions on how to use them in your BESM games. Remember, you can adapt these to any RPG system. You will just have to make the appropriate adjustments to the rules for that system. The basic setup and the suggestions I had for establishing the world work all the same. The way that you're going to have the dynamic of the characters, the way things are built like that, same setup. It's just the rules and the character creation you're going to have to worry about adapting. Which, you know, as a DM, sometimes you need to do that sort of thing. But regardless, if you have any questions, comments, anything you would say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link description below. But until the next time, I bid you farewell.